everyone, welcome back to Cryptoria. This is our new episode about how to DeFi, and this time we have great honors to invite one of my favorite projects, dYdX. This is my first project I entered into crypto industries, and it's the first white papers I've read. So I'm so glad that I can invite Charles to our podcast today. So, Charles, and welcome to join us. Would you mind to just introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here this morning. So my name is Charles. I'm the CEO of the dYdX Foundation, and I've been in crypto for quite some time. So I've been living in Hong Kong for 18 years, and through my life, I'm 47 years old. I discovered Bitcoin in 2011 via some online forums. At the time, I was kind of exchanging MP3 and movies because it was expensive and there was no Netflix or platforms like this. So I was exposed to kind of peer-to-peer computing fairly early on with eDonkey 2000s and all the generations before BitTorrent. And then someone introduced to me peer-to-peer money. And I thought, oh, I know peer-to-peer very well. I love it. And money, I believe I know it. And Bitcoin was very interesting for me because it made me realize I did not really understand money, actually. Of course, I had a little bit of money in my pocket, but money was much more complex and possibly as interesting as computers. So that was really the beginning of the rabbit hole for me. I remember buying my first Bitcoin on Taobao. At the time, it was the only way to buy Bitcoin. You could go to Mongox, but Mongox was a drama a few months after. So I'm glad I went to Taobao and it worked well. Some people told me that maybe I was buying from the first miners in China because at the time Taobao did not understand Bitcoin. So you could buy and say, "Oh, I want one Bitcoin," and you pay, and you will receive the Bitcoin a few minutes later. So that was my first kind of interactions with Bitcoin, and that was very, very interesting. The same year I bought my first Bitcoin, I sold everything because I went busy. I was an entrepreneur at the time, and someone wanted to buy my business, so I needed to stop reading about Bitcoin all the night and starting to focus on my own business. So I probably made some mistakes and sold my Bitcoin too early. Some people buy pizza with Bitcoin too early, and some people just think that's not for me. And that was my first reactions. I came back in crypto in 2015 when Ethereum came in. I think the business logics on the top of decentralized computing was very interesting and a very strong new value proposition versus what Bitcoin was able to do. At the time, I was with the Hong Kong government. I was the head of Fintech for the Hong Kong government. So I helped the Hong Kong government to essentially inject into the traditional finance international hub that is Hong Kong, inject some Fintech, financial technology. So I was working on multiple type of technologies. I had a team of 10 people or so with offices in Hong Kong, obviously, but we had also office in Beijing, in San Francisco, in London. And our goal was to essentially make the Western world and the mainland Chinese entrepreneurs understand the value proposition of Hong Kong in fintech and make them come to Hong Kong and expand their business in Asia via Hong Kong. So I was some kind of a super salesman for fintech in Hong Kong. And one of the fintech category was blockchain. And I knew blockchain already for some time. So after 3 years and a half or so with the Hong Kong government, I really had some very good time. I learned so much. I worked with the regulators, with the HKMA, with the SFC. I was the organizer of the Hong Kong FinTech Week as well. We organized one edition of the Hong Kong FinTech Week together with the Shenzhen government at the time, just to start to illustrate the Greater Bay Area narrative, showing that if you decide to expand your business in Hong Kong, you will be having like facilitation and bridges to the GBA, to Shenzhen and some other cities. And after some years at the Hong Kong government, I decided to join Consensus. I was the founder of the Consensus Hong Kong office. Later on, Joseph Lubin asked me to take care of Asia. And through my career within Consensus, I've worked on many DeFi projects, NFT projects. We supported with the Asian teams the expansion of MetaMask. I remember back in the days, MetaMask was doing great, but it was early in the industry, so only a few hundred thousands of users. And very quickly, this kind of hockey stick growth for the adoptions of crypto in the Asian regions, which was very interesting. We built also a lot of CBDCs together with central banks, some CBDCs with the Australian central banks, with the Thai central banks, with the Hong Kong HKMA, obviously, with Abu Dhabi, with the PBOC. So if you read about the project M-Bridge, it was actually made in Hong Kong by the team at Consensus, the team I was leading over there, and really enabling various governments to work together on deploying a blockchain for CBDCs. So a lot of different topics, a lot of different learnings, but really that was just perfect for me. I have a very big appetite for new things. I like to learn new stuff, and if it's about and around the crypto theme, I'm just all in always. And after some time with Consensus, I eventually joined the dYdX Foundation. So I'm the CEO of the dYdX Foundation. And what was attractive for me within dYdX, after spending a lot of time at the infrastructure layer, building infrastructure, building blockchains for government and some other players, I wanted to kind of get more experience and go deeper into the space. So dYdX was a great opportunity, as dYdX is one of the leaders in terms of decentralized finance, and decentralized finance, or DeFi, is the most established use case in crypto. DeFi is working, DeFi is big, DeFi businesses are profitable, there is no question about it. So it's a very established use case. That's the number one. Number two, dYdX was in the process of essentially expanding and building his own app chain. And an app chain was something very new for me. I really wanted to kind of get my hands on this kind of project, because by building, you learn way faster. And the app chain narrative was very interesting. When a project is sizable enough, they have the option, if they decide to build their own blockchain. What does it mean? What kind of responsibility it comes with? What are the challenges, the learning, the freedom you earn by building your own infrastructure? So DeFi, building the app chain. There is also with dYdX a lot of topics around decentralization and building DAOs. And that's something also which I know is very young phenomenon. It's very experimental, but again, I have a very big appetite for these kind of new things. And to learn faster than many, I decided to say, let's go and build with other people from the ecosystem. So that was a very interesting kind of path of learning, and of course, spending time with great people from the industry overall. So that's in a nutshell my journey. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Charles. So before we talk about your experience in dYdX, I really want to talk about your experience in Hong Kong, since you already mentioned that you live in Hong Kong for nearly 2 decades, right? Definitely, I know that when you work in the Hong Kong government agency, you have to, live in Hong Kong. But other than that, what motivated you to move to Hong Kong, and how's your experience in, living in Hong Kong?
At the time, for a French guy, I lived first in China, in Guangzhou. I actually studied Chinese in Zhongshan Dashui for 1 year.
Wow.
And I know you're planning to make me speak Chinese with AI, so thank you very much. Because my AI Chinese is probably much better than the dust of Chinese I have in my brain. But I felt Asia was very attractive. When you come from the old Europe and you arrive in Asia, you feel the energy. You feel the people optimism. You feel the people dreams. You feel the people working on their dreams. Whatever their dreams are, this is something which is very unique to a few places in the world, and China is one of these places. Just you get outside of the plane, you check in your hotel, and suddenly jet lag disappear, and you get this kind of adrenaline push, because everyone around you is busy, is ambitious, have good energy. And that's something which was extremely attractive for me, coming from Europe. So I started in China, and then I moved to Hong Kong. But I guess it's the energy. It's just the fact that people will not ask you which school you're from and which diploma you have. They will just say, okay, do you want to work with us? And then if you work hard, if you are talented and you work hard and you stay honest and diligent, I think this is one part of the world where you will really be highly rewarded. You need to work hard. It's definitely competitive, but it's a very healthy place, I think, for young professionals. And that was my journey. So I decided to spend more time in Hong Kong. And like many expats, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to stay maybe 2 years. And then suddenly you look at your watch and you're like, that's already 15 years and I will stay more. And yes, it's just good dynamic. It's just very, very good energy. And again, I think this kind of meritocracy environment, for some people, it's very much an opportunity, and I'm one of them. So I've been always working hard, staying diligent, not cutting corners. I think China and Hong Kong is one place where you get rewarded for that, and the journey is just amazing.
Thank you. So I need to tell our audience like a background story. So Charles sent us a copy, a digital copy, which got a small letters on it. It's cryptoric copy about his book called Blockcoin. I'm pretty surprised because I have no idea that we have such gift from Charles at the first place. And then after that, Vivian and I, go through the books and see all those like names which are really familiar. And then we look at the beginning of the book and we see, okay, the book is written in 2021. So it's like 4 years ago. Charles, could you share some like personal ideas about why you write this book and why it's called Blockcoin?
So Blockcoin is a book I decided to write to give back to Hong Kong and to give back to the community of Hong Kong. It's an idea I got when I was working at the Hong Kong government. I was in charge of Fintech. I was working with secretaries and different government agencies, and we were doing everything we could to essentially be better at marketing for China and for Hong Kong. And I had this idea to write a book. But sometimes in the government, you don't have all the flexibility you would want. And people say, oh, it's not really appropriate. Let's forget this idea. And when I left the Hong Kong government, I just have some meetings with many of my peers, and I told them, oh, by the way, you remember this story of a book where we highlight some key entrepreneurs of the ecosystem. I really want to do it. And people told me, you're free now. You can do what you want. And I said, okay, I just give you a heads up. So, I really want to write this book. So I wanted to give back to Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been very generous with me. It gave me a great career, great friends, great life overall. So I wanted to make sure that people understand how deep in crypto Hong Kong is and how Hong Kong has been and is still today very influential in the industry of crypto. The fact is that the Western media sometimes will cover more certain part of the world, and some people culture is not to shout everywhere how good they are and how big they are, and maybe Hong Kong is made like this. So I wanted to, in a way, build a bridge a little bit like you guys are building a bridge between the Western and the Eastern communities, and I wanted the people to understand that Hong Kong started to speak about Bitcoin very early on. Hong Kong very open policies have been always a great platform for the Bitcoiners and then the Ethereum project. I wanted the people to know that one of the first largest Bitcoin exchange was actually created in Hong Kong, BitMEX, and the crypto derivative, which are the world's largest market, and dYdX is one example of it, was actually created by BitMEX in Hong Kong. In Sham Shui Po at the time. It's important to know that when Ethereum was launched, Vitalik spent so much time in China, in Hong Kong. Polkadot was there. I mean, everyone was there. So I wanted the people to really understand that at some point, Hong Kong was already in the map of all those projects. So the concept, I wanted a book about the people and not a book about the technology, because the technology progress very fast and get old very fast, but the people stay. And the people journey are also an inspiration for the new generation. If you look at what is the journey of some of these people I've been interviewing, maybe you will recognize something of yourself and thinking, oh, if they did that, maybe I'm going to go for it also. So I wanted to give some inspirations and also promote further Hong Kong. So the concept is fairly simple. People can buy the book. On Amazon, it's available in English and Chinese. You can get a printed version or Kindle version now. And it's 21 interviews over breakfast in 21 different restaurants and part of the city. So people get, for every chapter of the book, people get to meet a crypto entrepreneur, they get to discover a new restaurant, and they get to feel the city of Hong Kong a little bit. So it's a mix of crypto and good food. And many people like crypto, and everyone likes to eat. So I thought it was a good introduction. So I spent some time with SBF. I think SBF was probably one interview which I keep in mind. I also interviewed Chris, the CEO and founder of Crypto.com, which is one of the most popular crypto exchange today. They're doing very, very well. This project was born in Hong Kong as well. So I remember my time with Chris. He's a good friend of mine, and I was very impressed by how much vision he had so early in the history of Crypto.com and how determined he was. And I'm not gonna lie. After this interview, I was thinking, wow, this guy is a little bit dreaming. Maybe it's just like too much ambition. That sounds not possible. But everything has been executed and much bigger than what we discussed back in the days. So that was also an impressive interview. I think my interview also with I forgot his first name, but Chen from Taiwan, and he's also living in Hong Kong. Was also very, very inspiring. 21 different journeys, so very, very good to see and illustrate why people come in crypto. And if you ask your friends, everyone is in crypto for different reasons. Some people are coming as pure speculators. They barely understand how these things work, but they see money. Some people are coming as engineers, and they don't want to be speculating, or they just have very small appetite, but they really like the technology. Some people come and dream of starting a new project and a new life. Some people are pure scammers. It's like a theater. It's like a movie. It's like a zoo. The crypto industry is just like so rich of so many different people. So you have to be careful, but it's also very interesting to kind of visit this museum of people and dreams and looking at how and why people are in this industry. So I hope it's a good introduction to the ecosystem of Hong Kong, and it's a good introduction also on what are the journeys of these early pioneers and why some people left their job at Bloomberg to start a crypto media. There is an interview also with some ladies which have been VCs and decided to start their own project. Another lady, Benedict Nolens, used to be with the SFC, and now she's building CBDCs with BIS, some kind of regulators of regulators. So there is really multiple journeys, and this is what I wanted to illustrate. There is one thing I would like everyone to try. Please copy my ID. It's not really my ID anyway, and copying is celebrating. If you live in some cities in the world or in China and you have like this crypto community, one thing you can do is to basically write some small and light stories about why those guys, should it be in Beijing, in Wuhan, in Chengdu, wherever you like, how this ecosystem have been growing, who have been the inspiration for some other entrepreneurs. There are stories in all corners of the world, and the concept is interesting, and you can give face to some people which sometimes does not have enough light on their face, and many of them should be known for all the good work they've done. And it's a good opportunity to invite some friends for breakfast or lunch, make people discover your city, and speaking about some of the great people in our industry.
Yes, especially when the first time look at the content page of your book, there's so many names that we are familiar with. And then you can see that some of them are still in their business. For instance, let's talk about Yesu, right? So he's still the CEO, also the chairman of the Animoca brands. And also we can see the Alex Swanee Vic. He's also in the Nansan. And of course, since you already mentioned SPF, I think at the time you interview him, FTX is at his peak, right? But now, of course, we know about that. And there are some people changes their trajectory. For instance, like talk about Sandy Peng. I think now she is the co-founder of Scroll. So it's like a frozen memory, and then you put all those people's life experience at that point into a book, and then show it to the world. I think it's really insightful to do that at that point. So let's talk about
forward to your own copy. So Vivienne and Jo Young, please get to work. This is your challenge for 2025. Write a book about your crypto friends.
Actually, we are doing now.
It's a good idea.
We are doing that. So, Charles, because you already mentioned that your work experience in consensus, right? So we actually already interviewed two of your former colleagues. One is Robert Drost, who now, who's now the CEO of Icon Foundation. Nice. And also we talk about Shu Yao Kong, now is the co-founder of Mega ETH.
Absolutely.
Ah, here we go. So yes, we are doing something similar to what you did like 4 years ago. All right. So now
Thank
let's
you
talk
for that.
about you, Charles. Let's talk about your experience before you joined dYdX. So, what motivates you to join dYdX, especially when you work in a consensus, such a huge group with so many talented people at the time? So, what motivates you to leave consensus and then join dYdX?
At some point, when you work with very large enterprises like Consensus, as you say, it's a very large organization. I think by the time I was with Consensus, it was about 1,000 people. So it's very, very big. And just my character and the way I like to work is probably in like smaller kind of setup. So I was looking for a smaller team and something which was more of a human size. And dYdX was this opportunity. When I joined the dYdX Foundation, there was only 6 employees. We are now 20, and we are all over the place, and the scope of the foundation has been very expanding. And as I mentioned earlier, I think I wanted to spend sometimes a little bit closer to the application layer. So within our industry, you've got the infrastructure, you've got the middleware, and then you have the application layer. And the early stage of my career, we are very much focusing on the infrastructure. And I wanted to get closer to the application. So dYdX being a very successful DeFi application, dYdX migrating away from Ethereum and becoming an app chain was interesting. Building on Cosmos was also a new stack. I understand fairly well Bitcoin. I spend a lot of time on Ethereum, and discovering the Cosmos stack was something new and very attractive for me. The DAOs also was something which was attracting, really understanding by building it together with the community. So there was a lot of new topics which were for me a great opportunity to essentially learn much more and practice in a different environment. I keep fantastic memories of my stay at Consensus. It's a unique opportunity for anyone working at Consensus, and it's kind of a university, if I can say so, for many, many talents. The Consensus family is a very big family, and even though you don't work anymore with Consensus, we meet each other. Everyone is pursuing a career in crypto, so we've got people in all over the place within so many different projects in so many different countries. So it's a very, very, very big family. A little bit like the PayPal. The PayPal, people call it the PayPal mafia, where you start some very groundbreaking companies together, and eventually you go for your own path, but you keep this kind of very strong relationship. So yeah, that's my good memories from Consensus and my Ethereum days. I remain a big lover of Ethereum. I'm in love with Bitcoin for a long time. I try not to be too tribal, right? Some people will think, oh, I'm a Solana guy, I should not speak to whatever, and all those guys from other projects have so different. Let's try to keep distance. I'm much more open-minded. I have my favorite projects. There is people I respect more than others, of course, but if someone is building on Bitcoin, I'm very interesting, and I want to spend some time with them for them to explain to me like how they do that. Same for Ethereum layer 1 or 2. People building on Cosmos is also a great environment, and the real builders have a lot of respect for people building on something else. So it's something I learned also, not to be tribal too much and keep your mind open, because things are changing so much, and people are also evolving their career and moving in different stacks. Yeah.
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 I think open mind is a common trait for every alumni from the consensus. Last time we talked with Shuya and we talked with Charles, you guys are always have the open mind in the way to learn from Ethereum, need to learn from other communities, learn from the other ecosystems. And that is we cannot call ourselves as like the Ethereum maxis or the Bitcoin maxis. Everybody is crypto maxis,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. I agree with that.
By the way, I'm quite curious. Be the CEO of the foundation. What's your typical day like? I know you're very busy. I followed your Twitters, so I saw you are everywhere in this world. Literally everywhere in this globe. So, what's your typical day?
A typical day, I mean, starts starts in the morning and finish a bit late. I'm afraid. The way we design the dYdX Foundation, it's public information, so I'm happy to explain. I presented to the dYdX community some about 1 year plus ago a business plan. for the foundation. And the foundation of dYdX is a very different foundation compared to some other crypto foundations. We are not sitting on millions of tokens. We are not the lords of the dYdX ecosystem. Essentially, the dYdX Foundation has been funded by the dYdX community and the dYdX protocol treasury. So 1 year ago or so, I presented a business plan to the dYdX token holders, and I wanted to raise some money to grow the team of dYdX and grow the activities of the foundation for the next 3 years. So we've been raising 11 million dYdX about a year ago, which gives us a runway for 3 years. And to illustrate how my day works, essentially spending a lot of time with the team. As I mentioned, we are close to 20 people now. So at the dYdX Foundation, we have one team which is dedicated to governance. Over the past 12 months, there was more than 200 governance votes. And it's very important for any crypto project to enable the governance and making sure that your governance mechanisms and dynamics are very agile and have all the context and align with the direction of the market, align with the level of development of the product, and make sure that governance become an unfair advantage, become something which is very unique to you and more efficient than some others. So I have a team working on governance. They might be helping the community on governance vote regarding the performance of the chain, some risk parameters, some upgrade of the software, some key initiatives, multiple things. Another team within the foundation is in charge of BD. So we have a BD team for institutionals, the market makers, the hedge funds, the high net worth individual, which are big users of dYdX. But we also have a team which is in charge of more the kind of retail partnerships with big wallets. Expect in a few weeks a series of announcements where essentially you're going to see that dYdX will be made available in multiple wallets. And all of this kind of development of the ecosystem of dYdX is happening in part thanks to this business development team within the foundation team. Another team within the foundation is in charge of solutions. So that's something I learned at Consensus, for example, that even though you might have very good software, it's important to have some engineering resources to help people to implement the software. So we have within the dYdX Foundations engineers which are not building the product, but engineers which are essentially helping and accelerating the integrations of the dYdX chain with other stablecoins, other wallets, other centralized exchanges, helping some very big communities and creating some good documentation, making some trainings, just being solutions and integrations engineer. Next to this team, we have also a team for marketing. So all the marketing for the dYdX ecosystem, the brands, the events, the communications, many things we are doing within the dYdX ecosystem is essentially run for the most part by people at the foundation. So we build this team, we hire this team. Some people are coming from Coinbase, some people are coming from Binance, to make sure that we really have the best talent for these practices, should it be from the governance, the BD, or the marketing. And then we have another team which is more an internal team, taking care of finance at the foundation, taking care of HR and some admin. Technically, we are a Swiss foundation registered in Zug, the crypto valley next to Zurich, and it comes with a few responsibilities, such as being audited and making sure you operate properly. So my day is kind of splitting between all these different teams. I make sure those teams are independent, agile. I make sure I enable them. If they decide to join dYdX Foundation and if we decide to hire them, it's because they are competent. So it's not a kindergarten. People are responsible. They have pressure, and usually they put pressure themselves because they understand how much impact they can have and how fast and how much of a great opportunity it is for them to be enabled and being responsible. And when you give more responsibility to the people, most of the time they just grab this as a chance and they make the best of the freedom and the enablement you bring to them. Lately, I've been spending some time. Some people approach us. They want to build an investment fund for dYdX. So people can invest in dYdX from traditional finance, for example. Some people want to include dYdX into indexes, DeFi indexes. So you can invest today in DeFi via indexes, which will give you an exposure to Uni, Aave, Morpho, and some of the key projects. And because dYdX is one of the key players in the biggest crypto market in the world, the crypto derivative market. Crypto derivatives are 10 times bigger than the spot market. It's a very, very big and very important market. The Binance, the Bybit of the coin, they are making all their profits because of the futures business, because of the perps business. And dYdX is essentially the on-chain decentralized version of this. Smaller, of course, but the trend is clearly going more and more on-chain and more on DeFi. So many people are approaching, because they have these independent projects they want to get started. So our goal is to make them understand better the dYdX project, the dYdX chain, how it works, which companies are doing what, who are the contributors, so they can make better financial product. So I expect in a few months a dYdX investment fund built by independent entities, probably dYdX appearing on some indexes also to represent a full exposure. Some people will bring to us ideas and then we give them context. Eventually, this is their own decisions. Some people want to keep upgrading the dYdX token economics, making sure that, for example, on dYdX, when you stake dYdX, you can get essentially rewarded in USDC. Those USDCs are coming from the trading fees of the users. So it's a very unique staking experience. Most of the time when you stake, the security of the chain and the rewards to stakers is essentially inflation. There is no inflation on dYdX. When you stake dYdX, you don't get dYdX. You get USDC.
Yeah.
Where is the USDC coming from? It's coming from the users' trading fees. So when users use dYdX to trade, they pay in USDC. And a large percentage of those USDCs is distributed every second to the staker. And many people are having deep research to think, okay, how should we split these rewards of USDC? How much should be going to the security of the chain? Should we eventually start something which is in conversation for a long time, a buyback program, like buy back tokens and bring them to the DAO or bring them, many people are discussing this topic. So within the foundation, we are sometimes joining those conversations, sometimes we are giving more context, we are explaining more the history, so the community can make their own decisions more with more documentation and more context. That's very important. But as you can see, it's a very wide spectrum of activities, from governance to marketing to BD to managing the brand in general, helping some key integration. A lot of hedge funds are coming up to integrate with dYdX. One of my team members recently was chatting on Twitter with an AI agent, having a difficulty to
Exactly.
connect.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Yes, I saw your tweet as well.
That's something which is just like totally unexpected. Of course, you know about the AI agent, and one day you've got someone knock at your door, and it's a machine, and you can have a conversation with it. Voilà. It's a long day, and then you come back to your family, the dinner, like what happened? And like some robots are asking questions. Like, what do you mean? So it's just, this is very refreshing. We are so lucky to be in this industry, isn't it? We just have the future is coming to our face every day. Some days the crypto industry is hard and there is roller coasters, but when there is a bright day, we should just embrace it.
Exactly. Last time I just talked with my mom about all the AI agent and said, maybe some days that can have the digital Vivians. And you can talk to digital Vivians to every ideas you have. When you're just talking about about the dYdX, I think I recently I read a report and from the Marisa and they quoted from the multi-coin capital and said the it said the multi-coin capital proposed that only those protocols that manage risk can have sustainable fees and value captures. And perpetuate protocols like dYdX do manage risk, and they can be left with insufficient collateral during liquidation. I think that is very high, high comments commentaries for the dYdX protocols. So, so let's back to the dYdX protocol. And I know dYdX recently launched the dYdX Unlimited. So, dYdX Unlimited. So, could you introduce this dYdX Unlimited, and could you share some what excites you most in this product?
Absolutely. So dYdX Unlimited is the latest upgrade of dYdX. So to give you a little bit again the full story of dYdX exists since 2018. This is an OG project. And dYdX
It
has been
is.
focusing since 2018 only on perps. So perps, perps, and perps, and perps, and perps. So very, very focused and very opinionated. And having a vision already back in the day is that you will probably not be able to do everything under the sun, but you really have to focus on one thing. A little bit like in traditional finance, after hundreds of years of finance, you have bankers which are investment bankers, people are doing mortgages, people are doing payments, everyone gets specialized. So we specialize in the perps business very early on. The first version of dYdX was on Ethereum. dYdX was a very early user of layer 2s, so dYdX existed for some time on Starkware. This version of Ethereum Starkware dYdX has been closed now, and everything has been migrated to the dYdX chain. The migration to dYdX chain happened for multiple reasons, but some of these reasons were, for example, the fact that when you are sizable enough, you can have your own infrastructure, you can have your own chain, and this means you can really have a blockchain which is optimized for your use case. If you build on Ethereum or if you build on a layer 2, eventually those chains are general purpose. It's a chain capable of hosting project in DeFi, project in NFTs, project in data availability. So it's a kind of a Swiss knife. It's doing everything, but not doing everything perfectly because it's general purpose. So having your own chain essentially enables the engineers to control the full stack and being able to get really an improvement in performance and a very much optimized full stack for the use case of dYdX. It was also an opportunity for dYdX to really revamp and change the token economics and the token purpose. So on Ethereum, most of the tokens are exclusively governance token. So they are not able to capture any value created, or it's really, really hard. And they are not able to distribute some of this value. It's also very, very hard. Building your own chain was an opportunity for dYdX to essentially change the token economics and being a governance token in the past and becoming a utility token and being able to essentially reward the stakers, reward the validators for the security services and the performance they bring to the chain. So building our own chain was so much deep opportunities and deep changing for the better of dYdX. What happened 12 months after the launch of the chain? This launch has been very successful, about $270 billion of trading volume. That's roughly $1 billion a day, more or less. So it's a very good market fit, and the users of dYdX have been following dYdX. But after 12 months of existence, it was basically a time where the community was able and capable to essentially start to work again on the application and kind of making sure the work for the blockchain itself is done, and it's working good. But now it was decided by the community to start to work on the application again. So dYdX Unlimited enables instant market listing. So for example, on Ethereum, dYdX on Ethereum only had about 40 different trading pairs. dYdX on the dYdX chain has 180 trading pairs. So people can instantly list a new market. So if there is a new meme coin, if there is a market you want to trade, the users can decide, okay, this market is available but is not listed yet. With a few clicks, you wait a few minutes, and then this market becomes tradable. So it becomes a very unique proposition, which really make a very big difference with the centralized exchanges, where you will have to wait days, sometimes weeks, before a token will be listed. So the instant market listing is a key feature of the dYdX Unlimited, as well as the Mega Vault. Essentially, technically, when you increase the number of trading pairs on dYdX, it's great, but you have the next challenge is really to bring liquidity to these 180 trading pairs and make sure that the experience is a reasonable experience on a very large number of trading pairs. So some trading pairs don't need any support. The Bitcoin, the Solana, the ETH trading pairs are basically working organically very well, and it's extremely liquid and it's a good experience for anyone coming on those trading pairs. But for some long tail assets or some meme coins, dYdX as a protocol essentially launched what we call the Megavolt, where users can deposit USDC. And the Megavolt essentially is an automated market maker, which will bring liquidity to the long tail asset, to the 150 plus trading pairs, which need some support to make sure that when someone comes and wants to trade, there is enough liquidity. And we decided to build this at the protocol level to make sure it's constant and it's designed for the good of the users. The Megavolt of dYdX, as the first objective, is to essentially bring liquidity. Some Megavolt in some competitive projects will try to bring the highest APR. The Megavolt of dYdX brings a high APR between 20 to 30%, depending on the volume of the day. But the goal is not to trade against the users. That's a very, very important thing. This is how dYdX thinks on many different topics. You need to go long term. So the goal is not to build a product which will essentially squeeze the users. The goal is to bring a product which will be bringing liquidity, making some money where there is money to be made, but the APR should not be too high. If you make an APR too high, it means your users are losing against this product. And the product should not be toxic to users. That's common sense, but not everything is common sense in our industry. And we are very opinionated about that. It has to be built for the long term. So instant listing is a key feature which have shown that it's very much a product market fit and there is a big demand for that. And to support this feature, this automatic liquidity provider where people can, if you don't know how to trade but you want to park your USDC, you can park them on the Megavolt of dYdX. You don't have to trade, the Megavolt will trade for you. There is an operator chosen by the DAO which makes sure it's properly run.
Well, you just answered my questions. I do have the questions about how the AMM in the Megavolt can maintain the sufficient market depth.
On this. So the Megavolt exists with essentially a series of smart contracts which will be distributing on trading pairs liquidity. But as you know, you cannot prepare and you cannot adjust so quickly with smart contract and the beautiful formulas you can invent. The market is so dynamic and people are bringing new markets and your formula will need to be updated constantly. So essentially what dYdX decided is to build a very solid formula of market maker formulas. But on the top of it, there is a human operator. The company is called Gotlet. Gotlet is very well known in the world of DeFi. They operate some vault on Morpho. They operate some vault on some Solana's project as well. So they're essentially professional traders and risk managers. And what they do is they allocate more or less liquidity to these different market makers for these different trading pairs. So it's a very good and elegant combination of automation as well as a human essentially bringing more or less money on these market makers, but making sure that there is always some kind of common sense and very updated feeling about risk management and liquidity allocation. And this comes back, Vivienne, to your comment from Multicoin Capital that people who can manage the risk well are very critical and strategic companies for our ecosystem. Some people might be coming from nowhere and being like successful for a few months until there is a big problem. We've seen that so many times over the years. But people which can be consistently managing risk properly, delivering products properly are just paying off very well. This is why we're speaking about the DeFi renaissance. The DeFi renaissance with Aave. Aave exists for so long. What's new in Aave? Not so much. But people rediscovered again that this is trustable, this is actually better distributed. The same with Uni, the same with dYdX.
Exactly. I think that is why most of the industry people just said the decentralized finance in some days will be replaced the centralized finance.
One thing also I learned over the years in crypto. So crypto is finance. And what is a finance business? Finance business is a trust business. I trust your
So
fund, I
true.
trust your managers. Eventually it's a trust thing. I will give you some money in you, invest in your fund or your ETF or something. And
So true.
the thing which is counterintuitive in the crypto industry is we are all building with trustless technology. So in theory, we don't need to trust each other. In theory, the smart
Exactly.
contracts are doing everything, and they are doing everything. But the reality is people still need to trust. They need to trust a brand. They need to trust some founders. The trust cannot be in the air. The trust needs to anchor somewhere. So people will
Exactly.
trust Aave. People will trust Uni. People will trust dYdX because they've seen those companies weathering the storms, the up and down of the market. They've seen them being diligent, being consistent. And eventually, you can go and play with the latest project of the week, and maybe you're going to put $100 on this and see what happens. Why not? But when the big players in our industry, the big investors, the majority of the market, they will go where people feel they can trust. People will trust CZ and Binance. People will trust Brian from Coinbase. People will trust the team behind Aave or the developer of Uniswap or the teams behind dYdX now. So this trust component in a trustless industry is very interesting, but it's very important for everyone to capture.
That makes sense. Well, Charles, since Vivian already gave like a really high compliments from Multicoin Capital, I also want to discuss with you with a different perspective from dYdX. Is I quote first, right? So Defiance last year they have a article talk about hyperliquid TVL hits all-time high, surpassing dYdX. Right, so many people talk about hyperliquid. They even compare hyperliquid with the sex. They said hyperliquid will one day replace all those sex, and as the new contender in the pub dex, how would you see the emergence and also the hype of hyperliquid? Does it have any negative impact on dYdX or on its community?
That's a great question. Thank you for touching on this. Hyperliquid team is doing a fantastic job. Hyperliquid has a fairly similar trajectory, in my personal opinion, as dYdX. dYdX on the Ethereum days could not sit on any blockchain totally because no blockchain was able to host the order book. And the order book is a very critical piece of any decentralized exchange. So it's public information. On Ethereum, dYdX was essentially hosting its order book on AWS. So dYdX, so to say, started as a semi-decentralized project and eventually decided to be very clear about its identity and its strategy, and saying you cannot be between centralized and decentralized. You need to choose who you are. And the community decided to go fully decentralized. So 12 months ago, dYdX decided to leave the comfort of centralization and decentralizing the chain, decentralizing the order book, decentralizing a maximum number of components of dYdX. Hyperliquid has a fairly similar path now. So when you do your token TGE, you have always a lot of love around you and everyone loves you because you essentially distribute billions of dollars. So the fact that they have a lot of mind share now is reasonable. When you give money to people, people love you for some time. These people maybe will move on to a next narrative later on. So it's not the first kind of airdrop. We did an airdrop some years ago. So the fact that it has a lot of mind share right now is a normal effect. How long it's going to last, I don't know. When we talk to very professional traders and users of the token, which is a different audience than the token holders themselves. Many people like Hyperliquid, but maybe don't really use it. They are just here for the speculation around the token. When you speak to the professional of trading in perps, they are very aware that essentially Hyperliquid per now is not open source. So you don't know exactly how the software works. So what's the difference between Hyperliquid and Binance? At the moment, not so much. I mean, the coin is interesting, the narrative is interesting. What's happening on the order book of Binance, I don't know myself. I think no one knows really. It belongs to Binance. So who is behind every order, you don't really know. On pure decentralized finance, you will know which wallet are doing what. So it's not decentralized yet, and the source, the code is not open. Usually, it's a little bit of red flag. I know there are projects to open this code and make it more transparent, and they're on their way to decentralize further. From experience, decentralization is very hard. And I think we will probably see in the journey of growth of Hyperliquid more friction because decentralizing from 3 validators, I think they are trying to do 16 now. So this is basically half of EOS, for example. So there is still a long way to go. We are at 60 different validators. So it's just a long journey. And when you decentralize, you will start to see inefficiencies. Inefficiencies in the world of high frequency trading, like dYdX and Hyperliquid. A few milliseconds is a very big deal. So I think they're just very young in their decentralization process. They should be decentralizing. It's very important for them. Otherwise, they are operating a centralized exchange with no license, which is a very complicated conversation to have. But the process of decentralization is a real challenge, and I think many people are kind of looking at this in a more sober way and thinking, yes, it's not going to be supposedly a great story all along because some more difficulties will come. But right now we are still very close to the token launch, so there is a lot of euphoria. Having said that, they are very successful. They have great ideas. We copy some of those ideas, to be honest. The Megavolt is also a great inspiration. That's the beauty of our ecosystem. If you want to see how the Megavolt of dYdX works, you can go on the GitHub of dYdX. dYdX is fully open source. From the UI to the core, the trading engine, the Megavolt, only part of Hyperliquid is open source. So it's just a reason of test. Some people don't care about these kind of things and have their own risk appetite. Some people will control their risk much more carefully, and they will say, if they don't want to share the receipt, if they don't want to decentralize, there is something I should stay away, and maybe I can make my money elsewhere. Everyone has his own pattern. Maybe I will close with one thing. I obviously have a bias. Hyperliquid is a competitor of dYdX. So with your question, don't expect to get only praise, but I recognize that they are doing a great work and they are very smart. Jeff is a trader himself. He has a good flair for the project, obviously. Maybe the last thing I will mention also about this market of perps, the real competition for Hyperliquid, for dYdX, is not so much within the DeFi ecosystem, because the DeFi ecosystem for perps represents 2 to 3% of the global perps market. So what I mean by that is 97% of perps trading is on centralized exchanges, on CeFi, and only 3% is within DeFi. So in first principle approach, yes, we can compete with each other in DeFi, but I pay more attention to how we can improve bridges with centralized finance, because this is where the vast majority of the market is. This is where there are millions of users trading perps every day. So for me, the competition is more sitting on the legacy crypto infrastructure, the Binance, the Coinbase, the Bybit of the world, and thinking how we can essentially grow the share. How big can be on-chain perps is your next question, I suppose. If you look at the spot market, so the spot market was disrupted about 4 years ago or so, when a company called Uniswap brought to the market like on-chain spot trading. With a very interesting formula, you could list yourself whatever market you want. Today, between 10 to 15% of the global spot market is happening on-chain, via Radium, via Uniswap, via our good friends at CowSwap and some others. So you can see the migration away from centralized exchanges to decentralized exchanges for spot has been quite quick and has reached today, let's call it 15%. the potential of migration away from centralized to decentralized for derivatives, for perps, is just the beginning. And it's just the beginning on a market which is 10 times bigger. So as I said earlier, between 2 to 3% of the perps market is on chain today. 97 is still at Coinbase and so on. So there is still a very, very interesting journey for very, very big growth. And remember one more time, spot versus perps. Perps market is 10 times bigger. Every time there is $1 billion of spot being traded, $10 billion of perps are being traded. So it's just 10 times bigger. And the migration is only starting. So this is why it's in a very competitive market. This is why we see many people paying attention to it. And this is also a market which I think will accelerate very quickly. Maybe I'll close with that because I can speak about this for hours. Obviously, I like this market and industry very much. One thing which is playing in favor of DEXs for perps is the fact that all the major centralized exchanges are currently in a global race to acquire licenses in as many countries as they can. Every time Bybit gets a license, every time Crypto.com or Binance or anyone get a license, let's say in Europe or in South America, in Australia, wherever you want, most of the licenses given to centralized exchanges are for spot only. So what it means is that when Crypto.com get a license in Australia, for example, they can only do spot now. They have to stop lending. They have to stop futures. So there is many trading venues for perps traders on centralized exchanges. Many trading venues are being closed one after another. Every time there is a license, it's basically perps traders which needs to find a new shop. And it's very much moving in favor of DeFi because getting a perps license, it's not impossible. There are some licenses available in Europe and some places, but they are very, very hard to get. And they're not distributed to so many. So yes, the market trend, there is a lot of space for growth for perps on chain, and essentially the licenses are essentially pushing more and more users in our direction. So that's why I'm very excited, and that's why many people are paying attention on this perps market and derivative market, and that's why so many talents in our industry are focused on this because it's a established use case, profitable use case, and also a part of the crypto industry which is very much growing in the coming years. I think the history is carved on stone.
Great. Thank you, Charles. I think we've gone through all your experiences at dYdX and especially the competition between the dYdX and the Hyperliquid. I want to devote my last questions to AI. As we just mentioned, it's clearly on your Twitter, you're welcoming all the AIs and you want to emerge the AI agent to the dYdX product. So would you mind just to let us know or introduce how you think about the AI agent and how do you think the AI agent, this innovation, can help the dYdX?
I look at this in a very first principles kind of framework. It's basically new users. And how can we get those new users more comfortable for dYdX? What do we want for dYdX at the foundation? We want more market shares, we want more users, and we want more fees being generated for the protocol itself. So it can be distributed to the stakers, it can be buybacks, all kind of things. So if there is a new category of users coming up, and those users happens to be AI agents, they're very welcome. And we want to make sure they get everything they need. So the right documentation, the right APIs, connectivity, being able for them to set up wallets as simply as possible. And what we find out is that they kind of find their way. I don't know exactly how. We try to facilitate things, but sometimes they're just there. And you're like, okay, so it looks like we're doing a good job and you don't really need some help. So they're coming. And that's a very interesting and new category. So far, we see them trading on dYdX. I guess the next step for us is to see how we can get them to list tokens. You can list any tokens you like on dYdX. We haven't seen that yet, any AI agent listing a market by itself. So that's something which is interesting. But yes, it's a new opportunity. I look at this in a very pragmatic way. maybe to expand on AI, there is one Chinese AI project which is getting a lot of global attention recently. It's called DeepSeek. And DeepSeek, if I
DeepSeek it
remember,
is.
yeah, if I remember well the story of DeepSeek, it's basically a Chinese trading firms which have been working on those algorithms and eventually open sourcing them. But all the training of those algorithms was made more on the basis of financial market, like reading social media, getting market sentiment, with the goal of taking decisions related to financial investment, essentially. And what I find very interesting and what I'm very excited about is probably we're going to start to see more and more AI engines. We all started to hear about AI in real terms with ChatGPT, but I think we start to see specializations of these LLMs and specializations of these different kind of trading brands, so to say. And the ones coming from financial market, in my opinions, are more interesting. And that's probably why DeepSeek eventually caught attention globally, because you can train AI for accumulating as many knowledge as possible and being like an interactive book, like a new Google or a new Baidu. And they are accumulating like the biggest encyclopedia in the world. That's one way to be intelligent, somehow. It's kind of summarizing or bringing together like a good answer to your question. But probably the AI of next wave, the next generation of AI, which will be able to digest much more information and which will be able to take decision, will be much more impactful for our life. And I think the financial environment is very interesting. And any AI trained on crypto is probably accelerating also in terms of learning. The reason being that the crypto markets, crypto spot market and derivative market, are generating a lot of information. This information is totally open source. What's happening on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange? I don't really know. This is their data. What's happening in the Shanghai Stock Exchange? I don't really know. This is their data. What's happening on DeFi? Like, if you want to know what's happening on dYdX, it's just open to the world. Everyone can train their own algos. Everyone can learn on the behaviors of traders and behaviors of the market. It's open information. And the next thing is the quantity of data in the blockchain world is massive and is created by the second more and more and more. And it's also very well labeled. Like, you know exactly what is this data, and it's very easy to digest for any LLMs, data which is very well structured and very well labeled. So I think that's probably how DeepSeek has been going faster, because they decided to work in a very targeted way and working from financial data and building some LLMs which are decisions oriented. And I'm very excited to see that the AI agents are already on dYdX, and probably they're going to learn and train themselves and maybe starting to compete, and we create some kind of virtuous kind of loop where they kind of train themselves better. And I think this angle of better AI thanks to DeFi is something which will emerge in the coming years, and people will know, like, okay, you've been trained on DeFi. It will be a kind of a diploma for AI agent, or you've been trained on general Google, or you've been trained at Wikipedia University. Not bad. You've been trained on DeFi. Okay, it means you've seen many things. It means you've been learning a lot of things on many different edge cases, and you're able to take decisions very quickly. It's probably going to be a better diploma for AI agents, in my opinion.
Yes, I think AI gonna change our life. To talk about the DeepSeek. My father yesterday, he just used the DeepSeek and to ask them, so how many new coins will be issued on the crypto? The DeepSeek gives a lot of the informations, and my father just thought I think just within the 1 or 2 seconds, this AI just research about 300 to 400 the online sources and summarize all the informations to my father. So I think AI gonna change our lives. So yes, we do hope to say in the later time, maybe that when the dYdX find the useful ways to use AI agent to embed the AI agent to the dYdX product. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Charles, for today. I think we took you for about 1.5 hours. Thank you so much. I
Thank
know
you for your
your time is
time.
very valuable, and thank you so much you spending these valuable hours for us. And I do believe you shared a lot of the deep information from your experience and in the meantime about all the dYdX. And I think most of our audience want to see how you respond about the competitions between the dYdX and Hyperliquid. So thank you so much to join us today.
Thank you so
And
much for having me today. I look forward to meet you in person in Hong Kong at Consensus.
yeah,
If you want to follow me
exactly.
on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter. And you can find also more about dYdX on Twitter at the dYdX from Twitter. Maybe you can share some links and the blog Kong book also later down in the comments. But thanks again for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Charles.
much, Charles.
Yeah, yeah, same, yeah. Just like you just mentioned, yes, to our audiences, we will list Charles' Twitters on our show notes, and in the same time about the dYdX links, we will on our show notes as well. So if you're just new to cryptos and want to learn more from Charles and dYdX products, just feel free to click the link and to follow the Charles on the Twitter and have the browse for the dYdX product.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes. So
Thank
we'll
you
we'll see you next month, Charles.
in Hong Kong.
I look forward
Yeah.
to that. Excellent.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you.
good
Thank you
care.
for joining
Enjoy your
us.
day.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Lungs they holler high. He brings the people out tonight. I need that swinging rhythm.